You're listening to the Fierce Fatty Podcast, episode 128, The Benefits of Being Fat. Oh yeah, let's do it.
Perfect.
I'm Victoria Wellesby, TEDx speaker, best-selling author and fat activist. I have transformed my life from hating my body with desperately low self-esteem to being a courageous and confident, fierce fatty who loves every inch of this jelly. Society teaches us living in a fat body is bad, but what if we spent less time, money, and energy on the pursuit of thinness and instead focused on the things that actually matter, like if pineapple on pizza should be outlawed, or if the mullet was the greatest haircut of the 20th century. So, how do you stop negative beliefs about your fat body controlling your life? It's the Fierce Fatty Podcast. Let's begin. Hello, welcome to this podcast episode. I missed you. How you doing? How's your life going? I hope you're happy and you're laughing and doing fun things. Yeah! I'm feeling pretty good today. It's Friday when I'm recording this. And I'm thinking about, so I go to this singing class. Once a week I go to this singing class, and it's a group of singers who like singing but aren't great at singing but give it a go. And there's this one woman in the group who I think she thinks that she's like Mariah Carey or something. It's so funny. She's like, okay, so we learn songs, right? And so like we're like twinkle, twinkle, and then the instructor will be like, okay, listen. This is how we do it. Twinkle, twinkle. We don't learn twinkle, twinkle, but example. And this woman is like, oh, she really likes doing like, I don't know what the right word is, riffs. I don't know if that's the right word, but this is like, she'll be like, okay, got it, twinkle, twinkle. Twinkle, twinkle, little stew, and we're meant to be singing in like unison, right? And then this is one woman who, finger to the ear, like we're in some charity recording with Bono from U2, and she's just going for it. It's simultaneously funny and really fucking annoying because it's like, I'm trying to listen to what the actual words are here. We don't need you doing your but anyway, you know what? Maybe you'll need to channel, her because she doesn't give a single solitary fuck. And she's I don't know, she's an okay-ish singer, probably the same like level I am, like not terrible but not good. And but I feel like in her mind she really is like, oh shit, man, I'm so fucking good, because she's always like, oh, I'll do it first, I'll jump off from stage first, let me do it first. Okay. go for it. Anyway, so feeling good, want to do some talk about some positive stuff, because with this podcast and all this topic of fatness, how often is it, oh, we're all gonna die, everyone hates fat people, nothing's changing, and this ain't fun. And normally, I mean, it's interesting. It's interesting to talk about, right? And but you know what? Generally in life, I'm a pretty happy, upbeat type of person, and so I thought, you know what? Episode on the benefits of fat. I cannot believe I've never thought about doing this, because shit, like the research I've done for this, it's like, fuck yes. So far I've come up with 24. I say the fat community has come up with this because I shared on my stories, and then I asked a question in a Facebook group, what do you think are the benefits? And some people, which I loved, said, I don't think there are any benefits, or I'm not sure the answer to this question. And so for those people, I'm ready to give you some juicy ideas of the benefits. And if you're like, oh, I know lots of benefits, I mean, there's even more. There's even more, maybe. Or maybe you already know all of these benefits and you're going to be like, Vinny, add on 25, 26, 27, 28 to a billion, because there's infinite reasons that being fat is amazing. I mean, there is, obviously, because fat is amazing. But anyway, let's get into it. No particular order. Some of you come up with some really creative things. And actually, I don't know, I'm gonna add on 25. There we go. I'll reveal what 25 is because I just remembered a comment from someone else. So, in no particular order, number 1 is buoyancy. So we had a lot of people. This is the first thing that they said is buoyancy. And so I'm gonna give my commentary and also comments from other people. So someone says, anecdotally, I recently went swimming for the first time in years and I noticed my fat body is very buoyant. I thought it was awesome. Someone else says, I float in water. Ideal lifeguard. No effort to keep myself afloat. And I felt this very, very real for me in an annoying way, because I remember when I was back in the UK, one of my goals was to swim to the bottom of the diving pool. And no matter how much I tried, I couldn't get there. And my boyfriend at the time, who was thin, he could. And my body was just like, no, bitch, you're floating. And I would get like 3/4 of the way down and I'd be like, I'm so close, come on. And I would have to swim like 1,000 miles an hour just to get to that bit. And then, my thin boyfriend would be like, blue, 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 picking up bricks from the bottom. And that it was annoying, but you know what? I can just hang out in water. And I don't have to tread water. Someone else said, I second this. I can just float suspended without treading water when my thin friends get exhausted and have to return to shore. Yes, so buoyancy, which is also increased playtime in the water and decrease in drowning if you were left at sea. You know what? I've got it in my mind. I've been watching, I probably mentioned it on the show before, I Shouldn't Be Alive. You can find them on YouTube. I Shouldn't Be Alive. These fucking episodes, they're so compelling to watch. It's like lost in the Sahara Desert, death in the canyon, and boys adrift at sea is the one I watched last night. And just regular people are going out on a hike, and all of a sudden they've been attacked by a grizzly bear, and then they have to survive crawling on the belly out of a forest over 25 days, and eventually they get rescued. And and obviously the person's telling the story, and so that the person telling the story is alive, and so it's good that way. So you're not like frustrated with the fact that oh shit, actually they just die in the end. So, and one of the episodes was free fall from the sky, and I just remember the show cards, the images on YouTube, and these parachuters were in a plane. The plane crashed and they all jumped out of the plane, and one of the guys, he was a fat guy, and he was the only one who survived, and he survived at sea floating just on his own, and then he found a piece of wood, so he floated for many days at sea. And I just thought, oh, he's fat, and so he probably had that benefit of not having to expend as much energy to keep his body afloat, and he could probably rest more by putting his head on the wood, and then he let his head rest so he could sleep, and then his body would float. Whereas maybe, I mean, this is all conjecture from me watching this show, but these are the things that I'm thinking about. Like, oh, he's so lucky that he was fat, that he was able to float. And I mean, you know, more fat is, you know, fat is like, that tissue is floaty anyway. So moving on to the next one, safety cushion. This is so interesting. I had never thought about this. I knew that older people do well by having weight versus being thin, and one of the reasons is that. So I'm going to link all studies in the show notes. Show notes for this one is fiercefatty.com/128. fiercefatty.com/128. The first study we're going to be talking about is called, and trigger warning when I'm referring to, there's going to be words are going to probably slip out. I'm going to change them to fat, but you just like a heads up, there might be some that slip out. Fat patients who fall have less injury severity, but a longer hospital stay than, quote, normal weight patients. And so, and so this study is saying that you have less injury if you fall, if you are fat. And I like I don't like, but it's interesting to say, like, they have less injury, but they stay longer in hospital. And what we see a lot of the times with fat people, when fat people go into hospital, that their treatment is different than if they were straight sized. And so that can account for the difference in how long they have to stay in hospital. Maybe it's harder to, I mean, who knows? So anyway, here's a link to the study in the show notes. And here we've got fat patients who had experienced a fall. This is a quote from them, had a fall, had a significantly lower ISS. ISS stands for injury severity score. Falls are a leading cause of injury and a significant public health issue. The incidence of falls that lead to emergency unit admission is growing with an increased size and rapid growth in the geriatric population. So 80% of deaths are of people 70 above, and one of the most common injuries and reasons for death and disability is falling when you're old, specifically breaking a hip, which can be devastating. And 1/3 of people who break a hip within a year will die. And the thinnest people are more likely to die after a hip fracture. So fat people have less injury, and they are least likely to die after a hip fracture. So that's the science shit. But a lot of people were saying about their experiences being fat and falling, and the cushion, the safety cushion that their fat afforded them. And so this is what people are saying. My elderly father has fallen several times, and I'm really confident that his hips have gotten horribly bruised, but he has never broken a hip because he's got extra cushion. Someone says, ditto, I've fallen a couple of times in the last few years. My belly broke my fall. Someone else says, yes, when I fell off my bike, the doctor told me I would probably have broken my arm if I wasn't so well padded. And I said, I guess thin people's bones can just stick out, and they just have their skin as the protecting force. That padding is so helpful. Yeah, because if you think, I was thinking about this, because I've never even considered this. Thin people, because I'm a fat person, I just think about a fat body, but I don't have, like, my collarbone isn't sticking out, and if you were to press my hips, there's, you know, a good few inches of fat there between me touching my hips. But, you know, this is how I'm so, like, not exposed to thin bodies. I've seen thin bodies, like, you can see their hips stick out, right? Like if someone's lying down, sometimes I've seen that, like you can see people's hip bones. And I presume, like, I mean, it makes sense, right? If you had a cushion around you and you fell over, if there's something that's breakable in there and there was a cushion surrounding it, it would be a little safer, wouldn't it? Someone else said, anecdotal, but I fell off a moving horse recently and didn't break anything. I seriously think it was due to the extra padding. Someone else says, it helps protect your bones and internal organs in car accidents and falls. I read an article years ago about a woman who started loving her fat after a doctor told her her fat saved her life in a car accident. Oh, that's really cool. I wish I could find that article. That's really cool. But here's the thing as well, is that we have that cushion, but seatbelts are not made for... Basically, seatbelts are made for thin men, straight-sized men. And so fat people can get injury from the seatbelt not being... if you underneath your belly, it's better that the bottom half of the seatbelt is underneath your belly, so it's hitting where your hip bones would be, versus that bottom belt being across your belly. So a little reminder for when we're getting into places with a seatbelt like that is to not have it across the belly, because then if we have an accident, it's going to squish. If we have it under the belly, it's got the squishy, and then we've got the bones there to stop us even better, versus in the middle, I guess we just have the spine if it's underneath the ribs, right? And even like, driving with tits. I don't know about you, but it gets on my tits, that the seatbelt is on my tits, and it's either like goes across my neck, or I have to put it under my tits. You know what I mean? Or maybe you don't. Maybe you don't have tits, and you're like, I don't know what you mean, or your tits are different to my tits. Some people will know what I mean. So anyway, this person is saying that someone started loving their body after a doctor told them that their fat saved their life. Someone else said, this might be weird, but I find that as opposed to my smaller counterparts, I don't get hurt when I fall down. This has also come in handy in stage combat and physical theatre. And while I've had lots of physical mishaps throughout my life, I've never broken a bone. I know bodies vary greatly, but I genuinely think the padding my fat gives me is responsible for this phenomenon. Someone else says, I agree with this. I have horses and was once kicked by my favourite square on the thigh. A thinner person would have a broken femur. I just had the mother of bruises. Yes. Stage combat. That's pretty cool. I'm going to add that to another one. Can do stage combat minus breaks. And I was thinking about this. How many breaks have I had in my life? The only breaks of bones I've had in my life are the sticky outy ones. My nose, when my then boyfriend accidentally headbutted me on the way down on a water slide. When the instructions were to keep your chin down, this motherfucker didn't, and he had a huge head, knocked me in the nose, broke my nose, blood everywhere, looked pretty cool. Kids were screaming. Kids weren't screaming, but I'm sure they were internally screaming. And my finger and my toe. My finger, when my sister rudely shut the door on my finger. Yes, but I've not had any other breaks. And I mean, that's anecdotal, but I was kind of like, oh yeah, shit. Is it because I have this special padding? No. Next, survive disasters. And so I'm thinking about I shouldn't be alive. But someone said we float really well and hard to sink or be drowned. Yes. And I was thinking about if we're in a natural disaster like a flood, then it will be easier to not drown in that flood. Or if we're in if it's really windy, gale force winds, we're less likely to be swept away. Like in that film Twister, where the cows are being all swept away and stuff. Did you ever watch that film in the 1990s? Terrifying. But maybe a thinner person is going to be in the tornado, and fat people are not going to be in the tornado until the wind goes even more, and then then we're in the tornado. So maybe it gives it 2 seconds extra time to escape a tornado. Or if you're like stuck in the desert with no food, but you have water. I don't know where you've got water from, but you found a natural spring. You've got more energy resource on your body. You're carrying around this resource. So I wonder if you might survive longer. You might be able to make an episode of I shouldn't be alive because I got stuck in the Grand Canyon in some like a weird section, or in the desert because my plane crashed or whatever. And you can be like, listen up here, I survived because I'm a fat motherfucker. And your thin friend died on like day 2 or something. I don't know. Who knows what the future is going to hold. But I thought like surviving disasters, that's a pretty good tongue-in-cheek one. Next, we are great to have sex with. So I've got an article here from Gina Tonic, written for Cosmopolitan, and it's called Why I Only Want to Have Sex with Fat Bodies. There is so much on the internet. If you think, oh, no one wants to have sex with me because I'm fat, Google, like, why is it great to have sex with fat people? You have got people writing poetry about the incredibleness of having sex with fat people. And obviously we've got the fat fetishists, but then, which are not necessarily bad, but also we've got people who just really appreciate a variety of bodies, and fat being in one of them. And Gina has made a beautiful point in this piece for Cosmopolitan. Let me read some. With one ex whose body resembled mine, we settled into a regular routine of smoking a joint, eating a massive takeaway, and shagging the night away. It didn't matter that the fried rice made me bloat because we were already big or anyway. Afterwards, we would press our bellies together, and it was the best because we were the same. My belly, boobs, or any part of my body wasn't filling a groove under his ribs like a jigsaw piece, but our fat spread against each other and left me fulfilled. This secret ceremony was ours, and it was one we held most nights during my second year of uni. It changed the way I fucked and the way I felt about myself forever. Continuing, I've discovered that fucking thin people who want to fuck fat people and fucking fat people who want to fuck fat people is different in its intent. When a skinny man grabs my belly and begs me to sit on his face, it is him seeking what is alien to him and getting off on it. When a fat person pulls my body on top of theirs, next to theirs and into theirs, it is them looking for themselves. For both of us, it's finding ourselves at home. When I'm sleeping with fellow fatties, I'm finding desire in myself. This comes from their desire for me and my desire for them. The physical joy I can receive from a fat body means not just that mine can have worth, but that my body can give me delight I previously thought was only available to thin frames. Cool. Like it. Yeah. So, of course fat people are great to have sex with. I mean, duh. Okay, next. We're soft and cozy. Someone says, my body is so soft and cozy. My kids love snuggling me. I love snuggling my fat friends. I can inspire my other fat friends to love their bodies by sharing my love for my own. Someone else said, big fat arms make a nice warm surface for my turtle to rest on. And then we've got a picture of turtle resting on big fat arm. And I mean, you can't really tell the turtle's expression, but I think the turtle seems pretty content. It's just kind of hanging there, you know, its limbs on either side of the arm and its neck sticking out, having a look, you know. And this is so true. Like, I think about like my mum's friend who grew up, she was kind of like a second mum. She was my mum's best friend, lived down the street. Her name is Jane, and Jane is a fat person, and her hugging me and that kind of softness of her bosom and her like, you know, nice shirts, nice kind of like silky type shirts that she might wear, the comfort from that, and the softness of, I mean, softness is just nice, isn't it? You know, falling into a nice big soft cozy bed with lots of blankets and pillows, and it just feels nice. So why would that then not feel nice on a human? It does. You know, if we had like, you know those squishy things, like those fidget things that we touch, you know, they're just like squishy, and you know, they're like balloons filled with flour, and it just feels nice to squish, doesn't it? It does. That's a universal experience of many people liking to squish, to squeeze. And so squeezing flesh and feeling that softness, I think is just a real obvious one of softness feels nice. Feels nice. Okay, so next, more tattoo space. I had never even thought about this one. Someone says, more tattoo space, softness is nice, fat bodies are beautiful, varied and visually more interesting, at least in my opinion. Yeah, so tattoo space. I mean, you know, some people love a tattoo. I don't have any tattoos myself, but I'm sure, I can imagine that if you have less space, less skin, then it might get frustrating that you might have to cover over old tattoos to get a new tattoo, or you just have to be like, oh fuck it, that's it, I'm gonna have to tattoo my eyeballs now or my lips because I've got nothing else to tattoo. Whereas maybe a fat person is like, you know what, I've got some more leg left, you know. And following on from that, from what this person said, more visually interesting, that's our next point, visually interesting. And I've mentioned it, I think I even mentioned it last time on the podcast, how I find fatness, I mean, all body variants I find interesting, but, you know, because people struggle with the idea that fatness is beautiful or visually interesting, it just is. I mean, there's just so much to see. And the fat back rolls, give me a back roll. I mean, really, I mean, not just one. I want to see, you know, all of those undulations, you know, and the dimples and the different shapes of body parts, and you know, how one person's fatness can manifest on their body in different ways, and so it makes them have this really unique like fingerprints, because, you know, maybe one person's fatness is ever so slightly more on that hip and then dips down and then goes into their legs, and maybe someone else, like, their fatness is more at the bottom of their belly, and more, maybe someone else is like their belly cuts in the middle, and maybe someone else is, you know, it's just interesting, really visually interesting. And I can see why a lot of artists will use fat models in their work, because there's so much there to look at, and there's so much differences there. Yeah. Next one, strong. Okay, so I love the benefits. This is someone. I love the benefits of being fat while pregnant. My body was strong, and already used to carrying weight. I wasn't horrified, quote, by how my body was changing, or worried other people would think I was fat, like some of my thinner friends. My clothes were mostly wide-fitting and could easily accommodate some extra, so I didn't have to buy maternity clothes. And since I already had a big belly, I could hide my pregnancy for as long as I wanted. So that's another point. Hide your pregnancy for as long as you wanted. And that was my 25, remembering this one. Because I was thinking, you know what, a lot of times people don't want to say that they're pregnant. And if you're straight size, you've got shorter time to have to be able to not tell people, unless the way that you're carrying a pregnancy is different. You know, there's all those stories on, you know, Chat magazine and OK magazine of, I didn't know I was pregnant because someone's body didn't change at all. And so, of course, that is absolutely a reality. But on the whole, if you're showing a pregnancy, if you have a smaller body, then you've probably got, I don't know, fucking how long? I don't have kids, so I don't know. 17 months before you tell? I don't know. How long is a pregnancy? So you've probably got less amount of time than you do if you have a fat person. And I can imagine that probably affects things like work. If you have a dickhead boss who doesn't like, won't promote you if you're pregnant, or if you're finding a job and someone won't hire you if you're pregnant, which is obviously illegal, but people are going to do it anyway, even if it's not illegal. Yeah, so maybe this is one way that fat people can get a leg up in regards to making money, getting a promotion, because they can hide their pregnancy a little bit longer. Anyway, so going back into to strong. Someone else says, being fat can make you strong. When I started powerlifting, my coach told me that I had been weight training my whole life, moving my fat body through the world. I can outlift anyone at the gym. Someone else says, heck yes, I'm already benching several hundies. That's several 100 pounds. I don't know. I mean, that sounds like a lot. But what? Several 100 pounds? Are they exaggerating, or is that real? Is that real? Weightlifters? That sounds like loads. Like, isn't that like the weight of a car or something? No, a car's way more than that. But anyway, someone else says, when I was in high school, I used to bet the boys I could leg lift more than them. Won every time. Couldn't bench 40 pounds, but my legs have always been hella strong. I think bench is when you lie down and you lift the weights above your head. That's the one where you see all those kind of funny fail videos where someone, they can't do it, and then it like lands on their torso, and then they roll over, and then they don't, then they're like, oh, haha. Anyway, I think that's what benching is. But this person has got strong legs. Someone else says, I box and it makes your punch land much harder. That's interesting. It also makes you... I'm not going to read that bit because I think that is not relevant. And I said, I wonder as well, do you think it helps absorb punches, as you'd be able to be punched with more force to hit muscle? You'd have to be punched with more force to hit muscles, where it would really affect your ability to keep fighting. And this person says, sounds like a good thought that I'm not really sure the answer to. I do know that the pro at my old gym was a woman, and she had a lot of trouble finding fights because of this and her weight class, and the coach would not ever let her fight anyone even a pound over her weight. So weight is truly an advantage. Interesting. Yeah, because I thought, interesting, on the physics of... Because it would make sense if from falls and from getting kicked by a horse and all that type of stuff, if that's protective, then surely getting a punch in the belly or wherever, in the bum. I don't think boxers punch in the bum. That would be pretty funny if they did. They're doing a scoot around in the bum. Maybe they do. Shit, I don't know. Do boxers punch bums? Do they punch a bum hole? You know how like rugby players, they fight dirty by putting their fingers up their opponent's bum holes. I don't know if that's fighting dirty or if that's sexual assault. Yep, that's sexual assault. Yeah, so I wonder if that's probably against the rules. No punching people's bum holes is probably a rule. Yeah. Anyway, continuing, what a great thread. It's taking a lot for me to find the right fitness for my hypermobile body, but lately I'm stronger and more stable than ever before, and I feel like such a powerhouse. Okay, so next, stronger bones, i.e. unlikely to get osteoporosis, as bone density is relative to the load it's under. So more load equal more density equals more strength. And I guess that one could fall under... we've got a health section, so but I mean, this is strength, right? And osteoporosis, I know, is a big issue for older folks. Okay, next, not sure specifically, I haven't looked, but when I studied anatomy, the risk factors for osteoporosis are low body weight, underweight, particularly older AFAB, assigned female at birth, although AMAB, assigned male at birth, do get it too. Calorie restriction, chronic dieting is another. Ways to improve risks is strength training, which increases bone mass. There would be studies about how bone mass is increased. A larger body person naturally carries more mass, meaning their bones are under a larger load all the time as compared to a smaller person. This constant load keeps their bone strong, but strength training as a larger body person would add extra strength again. It's I think it's called Wolf's Law, bone regeneration. And I should have Googled that to find the study, but I forgot. I'll have a look and then add it in. Come on, brain, remember that. Ugh, Wolf's Law. I'm going to Google it right now. Wolf's Law, bone regeneration. WOLFS. Wolf's Law, bone. Here we go. Wolf's Law of bone. Here we go. Wolf's Law is the idea that natural healthy bones will adapt and change to the stress that is subjected to. For example, if the bones are subjected to heavier and heavier loads, they will naturally reconstruct themselves to accommodate that weight. This is just how bones typically respond to stress. That's cool. Love it. We've got fucking bones made of steel. Love it. Okay, so next let's move to decreased mortality. Okay, so someone had actually written a paper on the hoo-ha that is the CDC, Centers of Disease Control, and okay, so this is what happened. So the CDC came out with a study that says that fatness causes 365,000 deaths per year. So the CDC came out with that study. And this study has been touted as anytime anyone wants to come out with a stat about why fat people are roaming the streets and, eating babies and we're terrible, is they tout this study, 365,000 deaths per year because of fatness. Now, this study was really shit. It was really flawed. Basically, if you die whilst being fat, then you have died because of being fat. Fat person is hit by a car, they died from fatness. Fat person drowns, they died from fatness. Fat person sneeze and their brains fall out of their nostrils, they died from fatness, right? And it's just, if you die while fat, you died from fat, basically. Anyway, so this study is that. And so a year later, the CDC came out with another study that says that study was wildly inaccurate. And actually, the number of the deaths caused by fatness is very different. And the person who led that study is someone called Catherine Flegel. And so her paper shows that fatness causes 112,000 deaths, but it also reduces deaths by 86,000 a year because smaller fat people have lower mortality, which equals 26,000 deaths a year due to fatness, is what this study is saying. The study before said 365,000. So big difference. So 26,000 deaths due to fatness every year. And that is called famously the quote obesity paradox. The obesity paradox being, well, hang on, we all thought fat people were just unhealthy slobs dying left, right and center. But how is it that fat people can live long, healthy lives? That's weird. It's a paradox. It's not a paradox. It's just that fat people can live long, healthy lives. Also, something to note is that we don't know why these fat people have been classed as dying from fatness, because what mechanism is at play here? We don't know. And that's a big question that scientists are trying to answer. Why would someone die of fatness? And you can say, well, because we all know fat people have heart attacks and we all know fat people, whatever. But why? Okay, so what? But why? Why would a fat person be at increased risk from a heart attack? And so it's kind of like going back, well, what is going on? And what we do know is that fat people have a history of dieting, more likely to have a history of dieting, which is really not great for you, will experience a shit ton of marginalization and oppression and shame, which is really not great for you, and are less likely to engage in healthcare, and when they do, they're more likely to receive subpar healthcare. So we're saying 26,000 people die a year due to fatness. We don't know why, but we can probably guess that, is it fatness that they died from, or is it fat phobia that they died from? I mean, my guess is it's the fat phobia. So, quote, given current government guidelines, it appears that the average person is better off to be 50 or even 75 pounds, quote, overweight than 5 pounds underweight. So the thinnest people are more likely to die versus the fattest people. A link to studies there, and then meta-analysis 2, and then someone who was talking about that talked about the weight of medical authority. This is by Julia Rogers, who was in the Facebook group talking about this. This is her dissertation, the making and unmaking of knowledge in the obesity epidemic. And the other part of the obesity paradox is there's more and more fat people. Why is there more and more fat people? Who knows? There's more and more fat people, but we're living longer and longer and longer. But surely, if we have more and more fat people, surely that means that we're going to live not as long. And the evidence is not showing it, right? And people have predictions like, oh, we're all going to die. This is the first generation that's going to die before their parents and shit like that. And it's dog shit research, right? Okay. So there's that. So decreased mortality. Next, lower risks of cancers and many other conditions, and improved prognosis. So there's a Paul Ernstberger, PhD. He was a professor at Case Western Reserve University, the Department of Nutrition. He did a lot of work on fatness, although he wasn't the greatest fat ally. He has a paper. It's pretty big. I don't think it's big enough to be anyway, whatever. Link in the show notes, called Rethinking Obesity, and it goes into great detail on all of these. I'm going to read out, and so it goes into the studies of all of these things. There's so many, because I thought, okay, lower risk of cancers, lower other conditions, there's going to be like 5. There's fucking loads. There's loads. And I bet you there's even more research now that's come out with even more. This list is so long that I don't even know if I'm going to read it out. I'm going to read it out so you have that. Okay, so health benefits of fatness. He calls it the O word. Fatness is associated. So I'm reading from his. It's from the Journal of O word and weight regulation. Okay, so fatness is associated with a lower incidence of cancer, overall cancer incidence, cancer mortality, premenopausal breast cancer, stomach cancer, lung cancer, colon cancer, it's not melanoma, it's meningioma, respiratory disease, chronic obstructive pulmonary COPD, pulmonary disease, COPD, which is so interesting because a lot of COPD is like fat, chronic bronchitis, infectious disease, overall fatalities from infectious disease, tuberculosis, urinary tract infection, bone disease, osteoporosis, hip fracture, vertebral fracture, cardiovascular disease, mitral valve prolapse, intermittent what is this word? Sedation. Oh, another big one. Why are you all making me read these long words? Atherosclerotic renal artery stenosis. renovascular hypertension due to fibromuscular hyperplasia, gynecological and obstetric, eclampsia, premature birth, vaginal laceration, hot flashes, premature menopause. And so these are all lower incident of all of these if you're fat. Anemia, type 1 diabetes, peptic ulcer, scoliosis, suicide. Fatness is associated with a more favorable prognosis in diabetes type 2, hyperlipidemia, hypertension, and rheumatoid arthritis. It feels like, you know what, that should be made into a song. You know, like the medical love song from Monty Python. Do you know that song? I love that song. Inflammation of the foreskin reminds me of your smile. I have balanical chancroids for quite a little while. I gave my heart to MSU that lovely night in June. I ache for you, my darling, and I know you'll get well soon. My penile warts, your herpes, my syphilitic sore, armilinia infection, how I love you more and more. Your Dobie's itch, my scrumpbox, your lovely gonorrhea. I wish we both were lying when we said that we were clear. That is Monty Python. We should, can someone who is very, come on now, come up with a health benefits of fatness, and it'd be like, urinary tract infection, osteoporosis, mitral valve prolapse, eclampsia and vaginal laceration, hot flashes, anemia, overall cancer incidence, lung cancer, colon cancer, stomach cancer, infectious disease, overall fatalities. That would be good, wouldn't it? That would be good. I'm there fucking talking shit about the woman who's like singing at the singing group. And I'm forcing you to listen to me sing for like a minute. Anyway. Okay, continuing on this, health benefits of fatness. Here's just like a little snippet of what he's saying, because we've got this whole giant list. But okay, so the chief benefit of moderate fat seems to be a decrease in overall cancer deaths. So that's like the number one thing is cancer. No thanks. If you're fat, you've got a lower incidence of it. This has been documented in the 7 countries and Framingham studies, as well as studies led by Wallace in Iowa, Avon in France, Rhodes and Kagan among Japanese Americans in Hawaii, Waller in Norway, Garcia Palmieri in Puerto Rico, and Garn in Scotland. Among the nearly 11,000 participants in the hypertension detection and follow-up program, a highly significant inverse relation between adiposity and cancer incidents were observed, even after controlling for smoking, age, race, sex, education, and cholesterol level, and the findings has been repeatedly replicated. All of these studies considered the possibility that thin people may die of cancer more often because disease-related weight loss enlarges the population of sick people who are underweight. This confounding effect was minimized by giving physical examinations and tests to all participants and excluding from the studies all those with detectable disease. Continue for many pages. And what he says to begin with about the improved prognosis of fatness. So fatness may have an ameliorating influence when it coexists with major risk factors. Lower mortality in fat hypertensives than in lean hypertensives have been reported in 5 studies reviewed by Barrett Connor and Core, and in 8 others. In one study, 43% of non-fat hypertensive men died during follow-up, while only 26% of fat hypertensives did. Continuing with that, and under the same vein of the health stuff, is that you are less likely to you are able to recover quicker from when hospitalized from COVID. So let's read this. So there was I mentioned it on the show before, a huge study done among 10,000 veterans who got COVID. And so they were looking at the risk factors in this study. And so Reagan Chastain has a post that kind of just talks about this quickly. In the post, she is talking about the name of the study is Risk Factors for Hospitalization, Mechanical Ventilation, or Death Among 10,131 US veterans with SARS-CoV-2 infection. Link in the show notes and link to Reagan's article. And so, quote, the large study of more than 10,000 people with COVID found that having a high BMI is not a risk factor for hospitalization, mechanical ventilation, or death. This is one of the few studies on this topic to fully adjust for confounding variables, and definitely one of the largest I've seen to date. Interestingly, it found that although black patients were more likely to be hospitalized and receive mechanical ventilation than white patients, they weren't more likely to die. This unusual finding may have to do with the fact that the healthcare access is far more equalized in the Veterans Administration, the VA system, where this study was conducted. Outside that system, unequal access to care means that folks who are Black, Indigenous, and people of color tend to have higher mortality as well as other poor health outcomes. So risk factor there is racism. This study also found that Hispanic ethnicity was not associated with an increased risk of adverse outcomes, which again may reflect the better access to quality of care that patients of color receive in the VA system. That access and quality may be why larger body patients fared just as well, and in some cases even better, than smaller bodied patients in this study. So again, that big thing of are we looking about why when why are they more why are black people more likely to be hospitalized? Why is it that black people more likely to be put on a ventilator? And then when they are put on a ventilator, they die at the same or lower rate than white people. Is it because they have experienced systemic racism up until that point? Yes. Yes. Marilyn Wan, incredible elder in the fat activism community, talked about Paul Ernstberger, which is the stuff that I just spoke about before. And she says, I feel like Paul wrote about correlations between higher weight and health benefits in his first big publication, the one authored by Ernstberger and Haskew, stuff like fat people who have type 2 diabetes or heart disease living longer, being more likely to survive car accidents. Kath Thompson, who wrote Aunt Agony for the Fatso zine, always enjoyed pointing out that she had built-in hand warmers. I don't know where the hand warmers are. Is it built-in hand warmers because you're going to put your hands into the flesh of a fat body, into the armpits or the under the breasts, or is it fat hands are hotter? I don't think fat hands are hotter. But Kath says she has built-in hand warmers. I think it's having a fat body, being able to put in, you've got all of that space to stick your hands in. Next, Bigot filter. So I've spoken about this before. Being fat filters a lot of jerks out of my life. Someone else says, right, they tell on themselves so much sooner than the racists. Someone says, yep. Oh, not someone, me. Yep. I feel sorry for people who are temporarily thin, who may be inadvertently surrounded by fat phobes and only realize it if they put on weight. Yeah, so that's, I think, a big thing is that, especially because, I'm dating and stuff. If someone won't date me because I'm fat, then it's kind of like the canary in the coal mine of even more bigotry that they are hiding, or, not doing a very good job of it, because not dating someone because they're fat is bigotry. But yeah, I mean, someone who could be thin and white and able-bodied and could marry or be with someone, fall in love with them, being connected to them, and then they have an accident, they become disabled, they put on weight, and then all of a sudden their partner's like, I don't like fat people, I don't like disabled people, I don't like it, can you change your body for me, because I want to fuck someone who's thin? And then you're like, oh shit, I'm with a fucking bigot, which is not what most people do. Most people do say, oh shit, I am horrible and I need to lose weight, which is, I want to tell them, run, get out of that relationship. And I mean, shit, it's complicated. That's the thing, is once you're in a relationship and you love someone, you overlook flaws like being a bigot, which, but anyway, and the bigger your body, the bigger bigot filter you have, the better bigot filter, because someone could be like, oh, it's okay if they're a small fat person, but a big fat person, I ain't interested, which is just a sign of their fat phobia and all that weight bias they have, which sucks. So yeah, that's great. I'm not going to end up with an accidental fat phobe. I mean, shit, they could be lying to me. They could be lying, being like, I'm a fatty, but I mean, don't think so. I don't think so. And I think, I really don't think so, because someone has to be somewhat attracted to you. I mean, of course, there's people who are not sexually and physically attracted. That's just their where they are on the LGBTQIA2S spectrum, right? Is asexual, aromantic. Not talking about that. Talking about if someone is attracted to humans and wants to have sex with humans, and they're having sex with you, chances are they're attracted to you. You know what I'm saying? Because they're not going to be there being like, ooh, gross, and then also jizzing in you. Right? Next, being seen / not being seen. So someone says, as someone with social anxiety, there are 2 huge benefits. 1, people actively avoid sitting next to me on public transit. I usually have plenty of space. 2, I'm invisible to men. I almost never get catcalled or creeped on in public. And so that's the not being seen. Someone else said, being 5'1", being fat makes me easier to spot in crowds. And so if this 5'1" person was not fat, they'd be even harder to spot. But because luckily they are fat, they're easier to spot in crowds. So being seen and not being seen. Next, belly as a snack shelf. I'd say snack and love shelf. So fat bodies, this person says, fat bodies are strong bodies. I love how effortlessly I can float. I think my body is very comfy and pleasant to cuddle with. And when I'm sitting, my belly provides a great shelf for snacks. And you know what? That made me think about my belly. And when Dougie, the dog, is sitting on my knee, he looks up at me and he puts his head on my belly. And he looks up and he says, I love you. And I say, oh my God, Dougie, I love you too. And, sorry, someone's just started jackhammering outside my fucking window. Rude. So if you can hear the jackhammer, literally outside my window, then yeah, just ignore it. City noises. So a Dougie love shelf. So I was thinking about this. But if I was thin, he could do it on my tits. But then I was like, you know what? No, it's not the same, because my belly is lower down, my tits are higher up. So if he did the looking up at me and using my tits as a pillow, his nose would be too close to my face. I wouldn't be able to view his cute little face as well, but I can when he uses my belly as a pillow and looks lovingly into my eyes. And I say, Dougie, you're so cute. And this person is using their belly as a snack shelf. Amazing. Love it. And also, you could probably, depending on your type of body, using the space between your tits and your belly as a like shopping bag, you know, as in, you know, you're going around the house, you're naked obviously, or maybe you're not, you're just in the store, and you've got like, you know, your bag of oranges in one hand and you've got your cheese in the other, and then you're like, oh, I want some Pringles, where am I going to put them? In underneath your tits, above your belly. Perfect Pringle tube storage. Or any other things. Probably not chocolate because it's going to melt, because it's something that needs to be kept warm. It's like a freaking little microwave thing, isn't it? It's a microwave oven. You could buy a pastry or something that you might want to have warmed up, stick it under your tits, in between your belly, that's warming it. And by the time you get home, it's going to be partially warm for you to then be able to put it in the oven or the microwave to warm it even further. Whereas if you didn't have a fold to put in your pastry, you're going to have to wait 3 seconds longer for that to warm in the oven. So who's the winner now? Thin people, I'm sorry, but your snack eating capabilities are seriously hampered because you don't have folds to stick a pastry into. It's very sad for you. Now everyone who has a fold, I guess thin people could stick it down their pants, underneath their balls, in between the like bum cheeks or something. But it's probably a little bit harder to do that in the store versus shoving it down your bra, you know? And a lot of people with very big tits, not even, will use their bra as their purse, right? You know, you see that a lot. You see the signs like, we don't accept money that's come from your bra. But, you know, like, have you seen the videos on TikTok where like there's this like woman who takes out a whole bottle of wine from her bra because she has fat tits? And that was just from one side. She could have had another bottle from the other side. Okay. Next, mental health. It's good for your mental health to stay out of toxic diet culture that can cause disordered eating, is what one person says. Another person says being fat and good with it is a blessing to mental health and wellness. The amount of space that gets freed in one's brain when you stop worrying about food and dieting is immense. You suddenly have so much extra time and energy to focus on things that actually bring you pleasure or move your life forward. And this one, I'll do this with an asterisk because anyone can experience that, right? You don't have to be necessarily fat, but okay, here's how this works for fat folks, is that fat people experience marginalization and stigma and bigotry because of the size of their bodies. And so that's something that straight size people don't experience because of the size of their bodies. Therefore, if we are saying no, we're not going to buy into that bullshit anymore, we are potentially going to have increased satisfaction. Like most improved. That's what it. Most improved. Because from the starting point, it might be a little bit more difficult. Okay, next. We are incredible and resilient. And so this post that Fat Doctor UK that I saw, and I was like, yes. So Asher says, why are people so utterly threatened by fat people? Oh no, wait, it's because we're fucking incredible. We're the people society rejects and somehow find a way to make something of ourselves. We're the butt of everyone's jokes, and yet we are still the funniest people in the room. I just want to take a moment to celebrate our collective awesomeness. We are some of the most creative, entrepreneurial, resilient, compassionate, intelligent, and capable people on this planet. And we're like this because we're fat. Every time society said no, we said, we'll see. Every time society said, there's something wrong with you, we said, no, there's not. Every time society said, you're not welcome here, we said, let's make our own space where we are welcome. Fat folks, no matter where you are right now and what you're going through, take a moment to reflect upon how far you've come in spite of all those people who were cheering for you to fail. You are amazing. Ah, and then Ash is saying, tagging me in people who has affected their life in a positive way. Thank you. And someone else has tagged me too. I didn't even notice that. Thank you. Thank you. Aw, and that's a nice little surprise. Yeah, I mean, shit. How resilient do we have to be to have currently survived fat phobia? And depending on your size, even more levels of discrimination and oppression if you're a bigger fat person. I mean, whoa, that is some feat in this violently fat phobic world. You know, advocating for ourselves, not internalizing shame, saying no, I'm not going to stay small, and just surviving and living. I mean, even if you're not at the place where you're able to advocate for yourself or feel okay, you're alive and you're fat. That's taken resilience, and that is wonderful. Okay, next, fat community, which is what Asha was talking about as well in there. Someone says, there's special communities of fat folks that I'm a member of online, places where everyone is accepted, loved and praised for who they are, places that you know are safe and that everyone is kind, where anything other than respect, kindness and compassion is not tolerated at all. I think we fatties are lucky in that respect. The thins miss out on those utterly welcoming online places. Yes. And then someone below said, can you tell me some of those groups that you're a member of? And I'm going to link them below, but you can just pop these into Facebook. The first one is Fat Acceptance Cloud. The next one is Fat Chat Community. And the next one is Chat with Fat Feminists. And I am personally a member of a local group here in Vancouver. If you're in Vancouver and you want to be a member of that Facebook group, let me know. I think I might have to add you. If not, it's kind of hard to find. Let me I'll tell you the name of it so you see if you can find it. It's called Fat Club Vancouver, but it's got a punctuation mark before and after that I don't know the name of this. It's like a dash. It's like a dash, but it's a wiggly dash, so it looks like a tiny little wave. So it's a tiny little wave, and then Fat Club Vancouver, and then another tiny little wave. And I love that community of fatties, because we get together for clothing swaps. People get recommendations for places where, hey, I want to go to a massage. Who's been to a massage place that has that isn't fat phobic? What are the chairs like in this restaurant? Blah 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 blah. I mean, I'm just looking at a post now. I don't know if you know yet, but I'm at Mountain Equipment Co-op in Vancouver, and they have apparel up to 6X, and the plus sizes are actually in stock. And people are like, oh my god, or like, hey, go into this Walmart and they've got a selection of blah blah blah. It's great. It's a great resource, and I feel like I'm a part of this really cool community that is like under, a community of people who are like seen as the misfits of society, and we're like, and it's like this cool club that people are like, I don't want to be in that club, and we're like, fine, you don't have to be in that club, and it's fucking like popping off, like we're in a tree house and all the fats are there and we're having a little party, and people below are like, that looks rubbish, and we're like, yeah, you think it looks rubbish, that's fine, we don't want you in here. And meanwhile, we're up there with our Pringles tubes under our tits, with our, doing all the cool fatty things, lifting cars off people and floating. And I get to be a part of that, and that's really, really cool. And I think fat community is what has saved a lot of people. And someone else said that this person, Kat, who has a podcast called Matter of Fat, says, we did an episode on this topic a few seasons back, and she says we talked a lot about how the way we grew up and connected with others was shaped by our fatness in many ways that we're grateful for. Yeah. And I mean, I feel safer around fat people. I feel seen. I feel like I can relax. I mean, and of course, it's not always true that all fat people are going to be our best friend. And in fact, a lot of fat people are fat phobic. But even if a fat person is fat phobic, they still have maybe a similar lived experience in regards to their size as me. And so we have that connection at a minimum. Yeah, so I mean, fat community is just wonderful. Really, I think that's like one of the top. I think for me, one of my favorites, visually interesting, safety cushion. That's like a one that I didn't have. And actually, I'm gonna go back to this whole big list that I've got, because I think I've missed a few. Oh, harder to kidnap. Yes. Warmer. That's one a lot of people were saying, is that they are warmer in the winter. Someone said that that their sister got hypothermia in the same conditions that she was absolutely fine. A sister is a thin person and she is a fat person. Someone else says being underestimated and sometimes being able to surprise people. So, like with fat people, they don't work out. Oh, they are smelly, and oh, they are unintelligent, and oh, they are all of the stereotypes of fatness. And not saying that not working out and blah, 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 all those things are negative, but then being able to kind of crush a stereotype. And sometimes you will, adhere to a stereotype, and that's absolutely fine too. Is really cool, right? Kind of like, what is it? Something like hold my drink and then go and, like that person who says, in high school I outbenched not outbenched because it wasn't bench, was it? It was I outlifted all of the other guys in the class. Like that's kind of like you see in a movie being like, whoa, they're so strong, and it'd be like, yeah, fucking told you, dickhead. And the final thing that I want to mention is we are counterculture, right? The culture is, if we look at what is prevalent, what we're seeing in advertising and all that type of stuff, is white people, thin people, able-bodied people, blah, 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 blah. And in the fatness category, we're not seeing fat people as being a part of what is represented in our cultural dialogue. And therefore, we're counterculture. Therefore, we are cool as fuck. Just because we're not part of that main messaging, it makes us edgy, it makes us interesting, it makes us fucking cool, because we're counterculture. And I bet there are 75 billion other things that I've not even thought about, and the community has not thought about in the 2 days that I've been researching this. We're up to 26. I reckon we could get it up to, if we looked at all of the health benefits of fatness, it'd be 100. Easy. And let me read, I've got this one post that I just really like. Is it this one? Okay, so someone says, oh yes, great question. And this is their overview. Buoyancy not only makes easy makes water easy but makes me safer. Insulation, I stay warmer in the cold. Wind resistance, I don't get blown over easily on my bike or on the ice. Softness, children love to snuggle with me because I'm soft. Awareness, I know what it's like to experience hatred and disgust. Yes, these are a couple of more that I can add. Awareness, compassion, and wind resistance. Self-compassion, because of my experiences of hatred and disgust, I've had to learn to love myself or let that be my driving force rather than rely on the judgments of other. Sieve, for bad energy. Anyone who wants to judge me for my size is not worth my attention, so I don't waste time on people as soon as they show me they're judging me. Community. When I found fat community, bonds have been made that those who are not challenged by stigma do not get to experience. Empathy. I can know what it's like to experience hatred and disgust and can empathize with those who have had similar experiences for reasons other than or in addition to fatness. Joy. When I finally, after years of struggle, learned to love my body, the joy of being whole feels greater than if I'd never had to struggle. Yes, that's like that most improved. Someone else says, as Homer Simpson said, I'm drought and famine resistant. This is what this person says. 1, I'm 35, have no wrinkles on my face, not even forehead wrinkles. So here's one thing that I kind of edited out from other responses, is a lot of people said this, like, fat people don't age. That's ageist. Because we're placing a value on looking younger. Looking younger or looking older is not inherently good or bad, and so I'm not including that in my roundup, because I don't personally think that having wrinkles or looking older is better. Well, I mean worse, and so I'm not going to perpetuate that idea that being older or looking older is a negative thing, because it's an absolute privilege to be able to age. Okay, they also say, I'm not afraid of walking down the street by myself because I know weighing so much, it's going to take a lot to take me down. I know this isn't everyone's experience, but I love my strength. I've always been really strong as a fat girl. People don't like sitting next to me, so I get more space on buses or in theatres. It's great for social anxiety. I don't bruise and have never had a broken bone, and I would literally climb chain link baseball backstops and jump off. This one, I don't know, is the cause of my fatness or if I was just a resilient kid. 6, I don't get cold. Okay, so let's do a roundup. Let's do a roundup of all the things. We're up to 28. I've just added a few more from that last thing. The benefits of being fat. 1, community. 2, we are incredible and resilient. 3, mental health. 4, easy to find in a crowd. 5, belly shelf / snack shelf. 6, bigot filter. 7, harder to kidnap. 8, decreased mortality. 9, better cancer survival. 10, strong. 11, more tattoo space. 12, stronger bones and less risk from osteoporosis. 13, soft and cozy. 14, more likely to survive disasters. 15, great for those with social anxiety, as people are less likely to talk to you or sit next to you. 16, a safety cushion with that fat around our body protecting our organs and bones. 17, keeps us warm. 18, lowers the risk of cancers and many other conditions. 19, buoyancy. 20, recover quicker when hospitalized from COVID. 21, being underestimated and sometimes being able to surprise people. 22, visually interesting. 23, great to have sex with. 24, increased wind resistance. 25, we're really cool. We are counterculture. 26, we're able to hide pregnancy for longer. 27, empathy, self-compassion, and increased awareness and understanding of bigotry. 28, fat joy, overcoming fat hate to live our lives minus shame. And of course, an FYI, this isn't fat people are not a monolith, and so not every fat person is going to experience all of these. I mean, I get cold. I mean, I do get fat. I do get hot though. You know, all of these wouldn't be relevant to me. Like, I'm not going to be pregnant. And so this might not be every fat person's experience, but there's 28 things there that, you know, just off the top of the fat community's head that we've been managed to think of, and many health benefits. And so the benefits of being fat are amazing. Fat people are really fucking cool and gorgeous and worthy and just fucking awesome. Okay, so oh my goodness, this episode has gone to 1 hour 20 minutes. I was like, I'm just going to do a quick, every time, don't I say this every time, I'm just going to do a quick episode and then have some lunch. Like, and now it's 2:22 and I'm hungry. And you know what, I've ordered, for the first time in my life, I've ordered a table and chairs, kitchen table and chairs, new in my whole life. I'm 37. I've always had used, and so I'm taking a step into adulthood, and I've bought a table and chairs from 2 different places. Not that you need new stuff to be an adult, but anyway, the 2 chairs arrived on time, and now the table was meant to arrive today, and then I got a message saying it's not going to be here for 2 weeks, and I had a kitchen table and chairs, and I gave away to someone on Facebook, like, as soon as the chairs arrived, because the table was going to arrive like 2 days later. Now I don't have a fucking table, and I like eating my lunch at the table. So annoying. Because you know what, if I sit on the sofa, it feels like no longer work time, like I'm no longer in the work day. And then I'll be like, oh, I'll just start to watch this, and maybe I'll just watch, 90 Day Fiancé before the 90 days, another episode. So anyway, gonna go eat some lunchy pears, and I'll see you in the next episode. Hope you enjoyed this. Have an amazing day. Bye. Thanks for listening to the episode. And if you feel ready to get serious about this work and want to know when the doors open to Fierce Fatty Academy, which is my signature program where I teach all about how to overcome your fat phobic beliefs and learn to love your fat body, then go to fiercefatty.com/waitlist. Again, that is fiercefatty.com/waitlist to get your name on the waitlist for when Fierce Fatty Academy, my signature program, opens.